Most riders believe they know how to fill a tank. Remove the cap, insert the nozzle, pull the trigger until the automatic click. Simple, right? Wrong. Just last year, fuel-related issues cost motorcycle owners over $870 million in repairs, blown engines, and destroyed fuel systems. And the worst part is that most of that damage was completely avoidable. Today we are going to reveal the 12 most catastrophic refueling errors that are silently destroying bikes. And number 1 is so common that dealerships see it several times a week. Let's begin. Number 12, filling with the bike on the side stand without checking the level. It seems harmless, right? You arrive at the gas station, leave the bike on the side stand, and start pumping gas. The problem is that while you see the level on one side, the gasoline is accumulating on the other. When your bike is leaning on the stand, the tank can be up to 15 or 20 degrees out of horizontal. That means when you think it's full, you are actually leaving up to 4 liters of capacity unused on the opposite side, but it doesn't end there. This uneven distribution alters the fuel sensor reading, makes the bike behave differently depending on the fuel level, and in extreme cases, can cause the engine to starve for gasoline in long curves where the tank tilts away from the remaining fuel. We have seen cases of riders running out of gas with the needle marking a quarter tank simply because they always filled up on the side stand and the indicator had become decalibrated. The solution is ridiculously simple. Hold the bike upright while fueling or use the center stand if your bike has one. 10 more seconds of attention can save you from pushing your bike uphill in the middle of nowhere. Number 11, ignoring ethanol content labels. You walk into any gas station and see the pumps marked with the octane rating, but what many don't look at is that small sticker that says may contain up to 10% ethanol. Or worse yet, the confusing unleaded 88 label, which is actually E15 in disguise. This is what the fuel industry doesn't advertise. Ethanol is a solvent that attacks rubber lines, dissolves certain types of gaskets, and absorbs water from the atmosphere like a sponge. A 2020 study revealed that only 22% of riders knew that unleaded 88 means E15, a fuel explicitly not approved for motorcycles and which voids the warranty of most manufacturers. The American Motorcyclist Association has been fighting against this deceptive labeling for years because E15 can cause severe damage to engines not designed to handle it. Even E10, which is almost everywhere, causes a 3% reduction in fuel economy and increases the risk of phase separation, that phenomenon where water and ethanol sink to the bottom of the tank. For carbureted bikes, this is a nightmare. That mixture of water and ethanol is the first thing that reaches the carburetors, creating lean mixture conditions that burn valves and damage pistons. Always read the labels. If it doesn't say ethanol free, you're pumping E10 at the very least. For storing the bike for long periods or for vintage bikes, finding ethanol-free gas is worth it even if you have to cross the city. Number 10, using premium gasoline in engines designed for regular. Here we separate marketing myth from mechanical reality. Premium gasoline does not have more energy, does not give more power, and does not clean the engine better than regular. Despite what a friend at the gas station bar might tell you, octane measures only one thing: resistance to detonation under compression. Nothing else. If your bike's manual says it uses 87 octane, pumping 93 is literally burning money. We are talking about 15 to 20 cents more per gallon, which translates to $200 or $300 a year for the average rider with absolutely no benefit in performance. RevZilla tests confirmed what engineers have known for decades. Unless your engine knocks with regular gasoline, the higher octane provides no advantage. The frustrating part is that some riders even notice worse performance with premium because modern engines with knock sensors advance the ignition more aggressively for the fuel they were designed for. The exception is if you have modified the engine with high compression pistons or advanced ignition, then yes, you need the higher octane. But for stock bikes, the manufacturer spent millions in R&D determining the optimal fuel. Use what the tank sticker says and save that extra money for better tires or for a track day where it really matters. Number 9, filling above the tank neck. All motorcycle manuals say the same thing: fill to the base of the tank neck, no further. But riders systematically ignore this, determined to squeeze in that extra quarter gallon, thinking they are extending their range. What they are actually doing is drowning the evaporation system. Modern bikes have an active charcoal canister that captures vapors from the tank and sends them to the engine to be burned. This system only handles vapors, not liquid fuel. When you fill above the neck, liquid gasoline enters the filter, saturating the active charcoal and making it useless. Once saturated, the filter cannot vent the tank correctly, which creates a vacuum as the fuel is consumed. That vacuum prevents gasoline from flowing to the engine, causing jerking and difficulty starting, symptoms that baffle riders who just filled their tank. To make matters worse, on a hot day, that excess gasoline expands and flows out through the overflow tube, falling onto the paint, the exhaust, or the garage floor. We have seen riders go through absolute terror thinking everything was going to catch fire and then taking the bike to the shop only to be hit with a $300 or $500 bill for a new charcoal filter that insurance doesn't cover because it's considered maintenance. The pump nozzle clicks for a reason. That is your signal to stop, not an invitation to keep pouring. Number 8. Buying cheap gasoline at stations with a dubious reputation. That independent gas station advertising gasoline 20 cents cheaper per gallon has a reason for that discount. Fuel quality varies enormously between providers, and no-name stations often buy from the cheapest source without guarantees regarding additive packages or contamination. Major brands like Shell, Chevron, or Mobil invest heavily in detergent additives that keep fuel systems clean. A study by the University of Michigan found that non-premium quality gasoline generated 19 times more engine deposits than high-quality fuel in just 7,000 kilometers. For motorcycles with smaller fuel systems and tighter tolerances than cars, this matters even more. There are dozens of horror stories on forums. Contaminated fuel from poorly maintained tanks causing complete system failures, water in the gasoline because the station owners don't check their underground tanks, and even mislabeled octane ratings. One rider documented on ADV Rider how his Ducati needed a complete fuel system cleaning after a single tank of suspicious gasoline. $1,800 in labor. The $10 savings on that fill-up suddenly didn't look so attractive. Stick with brand name stations. Your fuel system is no place to go bargain hunting. Number 7. Using regular gasoline in engines that require premium. This is the reverse of error number 10, and it is exponentially more dangerous. When your bike's manual specifies premium gasoline, it is not a suggestion, it is an engineering requirement. High compression engines, which include most sport bikes and many modern twins, generate so much heat and pressure in the combustion chamber that low-octane gasoline detonates prematurely. This pre-ignition creates a pressure spike that hits the piston while it is still moving up, generating forces the engine was not designed to handle. Detonation can break the piston head, collapse the rings, and destroy the connecting rod bearings, and lead to complete engine failure. We are not talking about a slight loss of performance, but catastrophic mechanical destruction that requires rebuilding the entire engine. Some modern bikes have knock sensors that retard the ignition to compensate, but that is damage control, not a solution. You are still creating higher combustion temperatures that accelerate wear, and you're losing power because the engine cannot work with the designed ignition timing. On bikes without knock sensors, which are the majority, you are playing Russian roulette every time you open the throttle. If out of necessity you have to pump lower octane gas, avoid high RPMs and high load situations until you can refuel with the proper fuel. But if you make this a habit, you are asking for a new engine. These 6 errors are already serious, but what comes next is true mechanical hell. We are talking about tanks that rust from the inside, gasoline that turns into water, and fuel systems that die because someone didn't want to spend $10 on an additive. If you commit any of these, prepare to say goodbye to your wallet. Number 6. Ignoring tank cap ventilation issues. Your gas cap has a small ventilation hole that is absolutely critical for engine operation, yet 90% of riders have never even looked at it. As fuel flows from the tank to the engine, air must enter to occupy that volume. Otherwise, a vacuum is created that prevents the gasoline from flowing further. That tiny hole, usually a one-way spring valve that lets air in but keeps vapors from escaping, is the only barrier preventing your tank from becoming a vacuum chamber. When it gets clogged with dirt, corrosion, or that strange gunk generated by ethanol, you are riding with a ticking time bomb. The symptoms are strange and intermittent. The bike runs fine for 20 minutes, then starts jerking and stops. You open the cap, hear a hiss of air rushing in, and suddenly the bike runs perfectly again. That vacuum is so strong it can actually deform metal tanks. There are forum photos showing crushed tanks with dents the size of a dinner plate. All because of aftermarket caps that didn't vent correctly. The Yamaha Star forum documented cases where non-vented caps caused the total collapse of the tank, requiring replacement. That's $400 to $800 in repairs because someone installed a cheap cap from eBay. Even factory caps fail over time. The spring valve sticks, the tiny hole gets blocked by road grime, and you're left with a bike that works exactly as long as it takes to generate enough vacuum to choke the fuel pump. Do the test. Remove the cap after a bit of riding and listen. If you hear that hiss of air entering, your ventilation isn't working. Clean it or replace the cap before it leaves you stranded. Number 5. Storing the bike with an empty tank. This contradicts what many riders think they know about winter storage, and it's costing them hundreds of dollars in tank repairs every spring. The logic seems reasonable. Drain all the gas so it doesn't go stale. The problem is that an empty tank creates the perfect environment for condensation. When the temperature fluctuates, and it will even in a garage, the air inside the tank expands and contracts, sucking in moist air from the atmosphere. That moisture condenses on the cold metal walls of the tank, and you've created a rust factory. Steel tanks are especially vulnerable, but even aluminum ones suffer from corrosion that creates particles that end up in the fuel system. Multiple manufacturer manuals specify it clearly. Store the bike with the tank full and treated with stabilizer, not empty. A tank full of treated gasoline leaves no room for air, eliminating condensation entirely. The gasoline itself acts as a protective barrier against the metal. However, riders who heard "drain the tank" from a buddy at the bar keep repeating this error, only to wonder why their bike needs a new tank after just one winter. Replacement tanks can range from $300 to $1,200 depending on the bike, plus labor and paint. All completely avoidable by keeping the tank full and adding a good stabilizer. If you're afraid of stale gas, fine. Drain it in the spring and refill with fresh fuel, but never ever store a bike with an empty tank unless you like rust. Number 4. Adding stabilizer without running the engine. Fuel stabilizer works wonders when used correctly. However, pouring it into the tank, closing the cap, and walking away is a waste of money and a guarantee for a carburetor cleaning in the spring. What riders often fail to understand is that the stabilizer floating in the tank does absolutely nothing for the gasoline already in the lines, the pump, the injectors, or the carburetor bowls. That is the fuel that will turn into gum and cause starting issues because it sits in smaller volumes where evaporation and oxidation occur much faster. The correct procedure is simple but requires those extra 5 minutes most people don't invest. Add the stabilizer to a nearly full tank, then start the bike and let it idle for at least 5 to 10 minutes so that the treated gasoline circulates through the entire system. Some mechanics even recommend 20 minutes to be completely sure. There are countless threads on Triumph Rat and other communities documenting this. Riders who only poured in the stabilizer and parked spent the first weekend of spring dismantling carburetors and cleaning jets. Those who ran the engine after adding it started their bikes on the first try. Whether you use Seafoam or Startron, the ratio also matters. Too little and you don't protect adequately. Too much of some stabilizers can cause deposits. Read the instructions on the bottle, actually follow them. Your spring self will thank you for those 10 extra minutes of idling. Number 3. Not understanding ethanol phase separation. This is where the dark side of ethanol reveals itself most catastrophically, and it's happening in your tank right now if you use E10 and the bike has been sitting. Ethanol is hygroscopic, meaning it aggressively absorbs water from any source, air humidity, tank condensation, or the fuel's own moisture. The limit is 0.5% water content. Once that threshold is crossed, the ethanol and water mixture becomes heavier than the gasoline and sinks to the bottom of the tank, forming a distinct layer. This is phase separation, and it's worse than just having water in your gas. That separated layer contains all the ethanol, which was what provided the octane rating to your fuel. Consequently, your 87 octane gas turns into 82 or 84 octane fuel floating above a mix of water and ethanol at the bottom. When the pump or the petcock sucks from the bottom, it sends that mixture directly to the engine. The result is an immediate lean condition because it's not receiving gasoline, it's receiving water. That lean mixture spikes combustion temperatures, which burns valves, damages pistons, and in extreme cases can seize engines. Road Guardian has documented this exhaustively. Even bikes stored in climate-controlled garages suffer from phase separation after just a few months with E10 gasoline. Forums are full of spring startup disaster stories. Bikes that won't start, run erratically, or won't run at all because they are trying to burn what is essentially moonshine mixed with water. The solution is expensive: a complete fuel system flush, tank cleaning, and potentially new pumps and filters. Prevention is cheap: use ethanol-free gas for storage. If you don't have access to it, use a stabilizer specifically designed for ethanol fuel. Phase separation doesn't happen overnight, but it happens, and when it does, you're facing four-figure bills. Number 2. Not reading pump labels that indicate E15. E15 fuel is explicitly prohibited for use in motorcycles. Not discouraged, not suboptimal, prohibited at a federal level by the EPA for non-automotive engines. However, it is available at gas stations across the United States under deliberately misleading labels like unleaded 88 inches or 88 octane, with the E15 designation hidden in small print. The National Marine Manufacturers Association called this labeling false and designed to confuse the consumer. And they were right. That 2020 study we mentioned earlier revealed that 64% of people assumed any gas sold at the pumps is safe for any motor, and they are wrong. Using E15 in your bike can cause complete fuel system failure. That extra 5% of ethanol pushes the solvent action beyond what motorcycle fuel systems were designed to handle. We're talking about rubber lines literally dissolving, O-rings swelling and failing, and fuel pumps corroding from the inside. An article from Motorcycle Mojo in October 2025 documented riders in Quebec suffering catastrophic failures after E15 became standard at gas stations. Bikes that ran perfectly for years suddenly wouldn't start after just a few tanks. Symptoms include hard starting, jerking during acceleration, and in severe cases, complete system contamination requiring the replacement of every rubber component in the fuel circuit. Multiple manufacturers specify in their warranties that the use of E15 voids coverage. You don't just risk a repair bill, you risk a non-covered repair bill that could exceed $3,000. The American Motorcyclist Association has been fighting for better pump labeling for years because this is an industry-wide problem. Until that happens, you have to read every label on every pump every time you refuel. If it says 88 or E15, don't use it, period. Number 1, never using fuel stabilizer for storage. This is the most expensive mistake riders make, and it is completely avoidable for the price of a $10 bottle of stabilizer. This is what happens when you store your bike for the winter without stabilizer. The gasoline begins to oxidize immediately. The lightest and most volatile compounds evaporate first, changing the fuel's chemical composition. Gums and varnishes form as hydrocarbons break down. With ethanol-blended fuel, moisture absorption accelerates this process, leading to phase separation and corrosion. When spring arrives, that gas tank has turned into a cocktail of degraded hydrocarbons, water, and dissolved gum and metal particles from your own fuel system. Trying to start the bike with that mixture is like trying to run the engine on paint thinner. The results are predictable and expensive. Clogged injectors that need ultrasonic cleaning from $80 to $150 per injector. Carburetors full of varnish that require complete disassembly, soaking, and rebuilding from $300 to $800 in labor. Corroded fuel pumps needing replacement from $400 to $700. Fouled spark plugs, damaged fuel lines, in extreme cases, engines that won't start without a complete fuel system replacement. A dealership service manager told us they see this several times a week every spring. Riders who stored their bikes without stabilizer and returned with non-functioning machines. The average repair from $1,200 to $1,800 for a $10 bottle of stabilizer and 5 minutes to pour it in and run the engine. The solution is stupidly simple. Before storing the bike, add stabilizer to a full tank following the bottle's instructions, usually 1 ounce per gallon, then run the bike for 5 to 10 minutes so that treated gas circulates through the entire system. That is all. Stabil, Startron, Seafoam, they all work and they all cost less than a tank of gas. The alternative is spending your spring weekends fixing the bike instead of riding it and spending your riding budget on repairs instead of gear. All storage guides from all manufacturers say the same thing. use fuel stabilizer. However, riders skip this step due to ignorance or laziness, and they pay dearly for it. Don't be that rider. 12 errors that cost millions of dollars a year in repairs that could be avoided with 5 minutes of attention and a $10 bottle. From filling the tank at the wrong angle to starving the fuel system by not using stabilizer, they all have one thing in common: they are completely avoidable.